you're sitting down with Mr. or Mrs., doesn't matter, whether they're turning 65 or if they're getting ready to turn 105, I don't care. The checklist is the checklist. Do you do the checklist for someone that's already been on Medicare? Maybe. I've done it a few times because a lot of times the people don't understand. They've been on I've had people in their 60s and 70s that have been on a Medicare Advantage plan from day one and had no clue there was anything else. One of my couples that lives in Fort Worth, she's 89, he's 84. They were on Secure Horizons from the time they turned 65. I met them 3 years ago and put them on State Mutual Plan G. And they've been on Medicare supplement and drug plans ever since. And I meet with them every year to go over their drugs and change them if necessary, and because neither one of them take any real drugs. So all we're doing is we're finding the cheapest base plan there is. And last year it was Humana. This year coming up, it's going to be Aetna, of course. So we swapped their drug plans around. Actually just swapped her Medicare supplement plan because Shenandoah had a better rate. So, and they had no clue that Medicare supplements even existed. So that's why I said, most times, even right now, you know more about Medicare than most of your clients do. All they know is somebody told them you have to have A, B, and you have to add something else to it. And most of them wind up picking up a Part C, because that's what the insurance agents showed them and sold them, because how easy is it to sell something that costs $0? How hard is it to sell something that costs somebody $100 a month? No answers.
It's easier to sell $0.
No, it's not.
Depends who's selling it.
Not if you do it right.
Okay,
If you do it by this checklist, it's easy to sell something that costs $100 a month
okay.
compared to this. Because what does this really cost you? It's not $0.
Paying out of pocket.
Because you have co-pays, co-insurance that has to be met, max out of pockets. Or if you pay $100 a month, what's your max out of pocket? What's your deductible?
183?
So what's your max out of pocket?
183?
183. Damn, that's pretty simple, ain't it? Your deductible is 183, your max out of pocket's 183. Or you can take this and pay nothing and your max out of pocket is $5,000. Whoa,
Ruh-roh.
that's a big difference, ain't it? That maximum out of pocket makes a big deal. So, quickly, and I'm gonna pick on you since you're not wearing a tie.
No.
We always wear a tie in the office except on Saturdays. And your name is?
Right.
Brent from Clifton. I'm the branch leader here, by the way. Okay, so Brent, getting ready to turn 65 in 3 months. So I'm sitting with Brent. I want to explain Medicare to you, Brent. It's pretty simple. Your Part A, that's your hospital coverage. Now, the easiest way to remember this is your Part A hospital, that covers the building. That covers that nice fancy day spa that you're going to go to and, spend a few days with those Egyptian cotton sheets and the 5-course meals and the luxurious spa treatments from the ladies coming around. And if you find a hotel like, a hospital like that, let me know, because that's where I'm gonna have my next procedure done. Tease with the customer a little bit. Have fun with it. Because if a customer is doing this, what does that mean?
They don't understand.
Well, no, if they're smiling, it means they already like you,
Okay.
okay? Here's a rule of thumb. You meet somebody, first thing you want to do is make them a friend. Then you make them a client. Because friends will buy from friends before they'll buy from strangers. So part of your warm-up is just to get to know the person, make them your friend. Have fun with them while you're doing the checklist. Of course, don't say anything, sexist or racist or, get religion or politics involved in it. That always stays out. But you can tell when you're talking to someone what they like and what they, you know, if they're a Cowboys football fan, talk about, you know, football, right? Okay? Now, everybody in this room that knows me knows that my daughter went to the University of Alabama. So I'm a Roll Tide fan. My customer yesterday, one of them, is an OU fan. So guess what we did not talk about? He was wearing his OU football shirt. We did not talk about the upcoming tournament where Alabama's going to kick OU's butt after they take care of Clemson. And that's if OU can get past Georgia. So there's certain things you don't talk about. But other things you can tease around with the customer a little bit just to keep them, one, you want to keep them off guard. Two, you want to keep them smiling. You don't want them to start frowning. You don't want them to fold their arms like this and lean back and start taking a nap on you, like she's getting ready to do. See, there she goes. So anyway, Brent, I'm going to explain to you about how Medicare works. Now, under original Medicare, if you go to the hospital, you go to the emergency room, you go to your doctor, and the doctor says, Brent, we're going to have to admit you. Guess what? You're going to pay the first $1,340. And then Medicare's going to pay the balance. Now, and here's one of those key phrases I was telling you that you're going to, if you only had to pay that once in the whole year and everything else was paid for, that would be okay, wouldn't it, Brent?
Yes.
And you notice how I'm shaking my head? Because what happens when you shake your head? Usually the other person starts doing the same thing. If I go, that would be okay, wouldn't it? What's he thinking? He's thinking, this guy's a nut. You know, that's the key point right there. What did Brent just agree to?
The number.
Brent just agreed to pay $100 a month and have his full coverage taken care of.
There you
Now, I've already thought, okay, Brent, here's what we need to do. I need your driver's license and a voided check, and here's the paperwork, sign here. You know, I could almost sell it right there and then, because he's already committed. See how simple that was? Okay, and I haven't even beat up the Medicare Advantage plans yet, but I can do it. Because I know all the tricks of what those things don't cover and what this does. So, now, the worst part of it, Brent, is you could actually pay this up to how many times a year, folks?
6 times. Yes, ma'am.
Now, even if you could afford to write that check, would you want to?
go.
MedSup's unsolved, right? Now, Brent, if you stay in the hospital longer than 60 days, from day 61 through 90, Medicare is going to require that you pay a copay of $335 per day for that next 30-day period. And Medicare will pay the balance. Now, that can get pretty expensive. $335 a day times 30 days, I don't even want to think about what that comes out to. I know 3 days is 900, over 900, so I know 30 is over 9,000. Could you write a check for $9,000 today and not worry about it? You notice I said, and not worry about it. Because what if he could write that check for $9,000? Okay, if he could write that check for $9 grand, I don't want him thinking, well, yeah, I could write it, so what, who cares? So I add, you know,
And not worried about it.
and not worry. Well, yeah, I'd worry a little bit about that. I don't want to write the hospital a check for $9 grand. I'd rather go use that to, you know, take a trip to Hawaii or whatever. You know, I don't want to give it to the hospital. Now, if you stay in the hospital more than 90 days, from day 91 through 150, that copay doubles to $670 per day for that 60-day period. 90-day period. No, 60-day period. Man, I'm gonna wake up in a minute. 60-day period. Now, you've probably heard this term somewhere called lifetime reserve days. Now, can anybody explain the lifetime reserve days to me? or does anybody want to try it?
The amount is not replenished, so once I use those days, I'll never get them back.
That's it. Lifetime reserve means you have one chance in your entire lifetime to use them. If you go into the hospital the first time, and you're in the hospital for 120 days, the next time you go in the hospital, you've only got 30 of those days left. And once these days are gone, what happens? You pay the entire hospital bill. At that point, it's all on you. Medicare says, sorry, Brent, we're done. You now have to pay that $5,000 a day hospital bill. We're out of here. Now, typically, Brent, under Medicare, the average you're gonna spend is 3 to 7 days. I know I've heard 3 to 5, and I think now in school they're teaching 5 to 7. But typically, most of my clients that I've seen in Medicare in the hospital, 3 days and they're gone. Sometimes it's one night. But the average is about 3 to 7. Okay? Now, usually what's gonna happen is, let's say you break your hip. They put your hip back together, you can't go home right away and take care of yourself, can you? So what are they gonna do? They're gonna move you to a rehabilitation center. Sometimes it's a separate facility, sometimes it's another part of the hospital. They may put you up on the 8th floor of the hospital for rehab. During that first 20 days of rehab, Brent, guess what? You're not gonna pay a single dime. That is the first and the only time under Medicare that you don't pay anything, that Medicare pays all cost. You notice how I stress that, right? That's the only time Medicare is gonna pay everything and you don't have to pay a penny. Because I wanna make sure that client understands under Medicare, you're gonna pay every time you turn around. Okay? Now, after that first 20 days, if you're in a rehab from day 21 through day 100, Medicare is going to require you to pay $167.50 per day. Then they're going to pick up the balance. It's awful nice of them, huh? Considering the average cost of a rehabilitation center in the Dallas-Fort Worth area is about $180 a day. Wow, they're really paying a bunch of it for you, aren't they? They're paying $22.50 a day. Actually, it's only $12.50 a day. Huh. They're getting really cheap on you, huh? What do you think the customer's thinking about right now?
How can I protect myself?
That Medicare really sucks, huh? I want them to think Medicare sucks, because I want to show them a way that I can make it not suck so bad. Okay. Now, of course, if you're in the rehabilitation center over 100 days, starting on day 101, Medicare's done. They're not paying anything. You are responsible for all cost. Basically, at that point, what you are considered is you're in a nursing home. Medicare does not, will not, cannot, never has, never will pay for nursing home care. You are responsible for all cost. There's only 3 ways to pay for nursing home care. 1 is to self-pay, pay it out yourself. 2, have a private insurance company pay for it. 3, go on to state Medicaid. Now let me ask you a couple of questions, Brent. Do you have a long-term care policy in place?
No.
Okay. And is that because you've never looked at it, or no one's explained it to you? Or did you look at it and thought it was too expensive?
Nobody never explained it to me.
Okay. Well, I'm not a real, now, actually, if it was me, I would start talking to them. But for you new guys, here's what you say. You know, I know about this Medicare stuff. I'm not a real expert in this long-term care. And would you be working out of this office, or would you be working out of
Fort Worth.
Fort Worth? Okay. But I'm gonna be working with Carol next week. And I'm gonna be back in your area Thursday. Would mornings or afternoons be better? And she can explain that to you and help you understand long-term care. Would morning or afternoon be better next Thursday? Set up a follow-up appointment for the long-term care. That's simple. What's Brent gonna tell me?
Got an appointment next week.
If I've got his attention up to this point, he's gonna tell me, well, Thursdays are not really good for me, or afternoons would be better, or he's gonna tell me something and I'm gonna make the appointment right then and there. I'm gonna write it on his sheet, and I'm gonna write that appointment time on my pad. And then I'm gonna text Carol and say, hey, we got an appointment to talk to this guy about long-term care next week. Of course, I ain't gonna text Carol until after I get out to the car, right? I'm not gonna do that in front of the customer.
Assuming that the process works in some of the Medicare supplement, will I have a policy to deliver it to him in a week?
For the supplement?
Yeah.
Yeah, a week or two, you'll have a policy.
Okay.
And if for some reason you can't get to them the following week, because if you turn around and call Carol and she says, oh, well, I can't do it that week, the next day you call the client and you say, hey, Brett, you know, I talked to Carol. Unfortunately, she's busy that day, but I know you said Thursdays are good for you. What about the following Thursday? Reschedule the appointment. Not a big deal. It's a lot easier to reschedule an appointment than it is to schedule an appointment. Especially if you've pointed out everything out to the customer and the customer believes you and trusts you. That's the biggest thing, is getting the customer to believe you and trust you. Okay? Now, now Carol's gonna talk to you about that long-term care next Thursday. But now, let me ask you this. We've already agreed, you don't want to self-pay, right? You don't want to have to pay the $5,000 a month it takes to pay for nursing home care.
Right.
Okay. Now, let me ask you a question. I assume you're married, right? Usually I've already known that. So let's just say he is married. So do you and your wife have over $112,000 worth of assets?
No.
But before you say that no, when I ask, do you have over $112,000 worth of assets? The reason I ask that question is for Medicaid spend down. I don't want you to immediately pop up and tell me no. I want to stop you before you say anything, and usually a hand to the face tells you, I'm not done yet, wait a minute. The reason I ask is for Medicaid spend down. Oh, so you're not trying to nosy into my business, you just want to know. And then if the answer is yes, you know there's what? There's possibility of some annuity money there, right? And I didn't jump into your business too much, did I? Just a little, just a little. Okay, you do have over $112,000 worth of assets. Well, I'm gonna make a note on here about that next Thursday when Carol comes out. Remind us that we're gonna talk about that, because she can help show you a way that we can protect those assets and keep them out of the state's hands and help you with your Medicaid spend down. See how easy that was? I didn't get too personal, too private into your business. Just a little bit, just enough to where I can try to get that follow-up to come and sell you an annuity. Okay? Now, for those of you that have seen this a million times, what's the next thing I'm gonna try to sell right now?
Life insurance.
Yep. Now, before I go any further, and you might want to jot this one down verbatim, this is another one of those that's pretty much word for word. Well, I'll get there in just a second. First, I gotta set it up. Okay, I got some good news and bad news for you, Brent. At this point, we're out of the hospital. That's the good news. Bad news is you didn't make it, you died. But some more good news, Social Security is gonna help your wife bury you. They're gonna send her a check for $255. Now, I like you, but I wouldn't even bury your big toe for that. Now, here's the part you have to, pretty much word for word. Let me ask you a question, Brent, I'm sorry. Are you still paying for that life insurance policy that you have? Are you still paying for that life insurance policy you have? Chris, what are you doing?
Texting the client.
Okay, everybody got that? Now, what answers could he give me?
Don't have one.
Okay, that's one.
Yes.
That's two.
No.
Huh?
No.
Okay, that's three.
I don't know.
Okay.
What do you mean?
Don't have one.
Which one do I want to hear?
Any of them,
Don't have one.
any of them.
Any of them. I don't care. I've got an answer for any one of them. Don't have one? Oh, wow. You think it was too expensive? You think you couldn't qualify? Yes, you do. Great. Have you ever heard of Section 1035 of the IRS code that allows you to take older, inefficient, outdated insurance policies and convert them to the newer policies that have more cash value built into them? They have actual living benefits, and you're entitled to get that offer, and I can help you get an offer for free if you don't like the offer. No harm, no foul, you keep what you have. If another insurance company is gonna give you more insurance for the same price or lower your price for the same amount of insurance, that's in your best interest to do, and I'll help you do that after we're done with this checklist. Wow,
What's the IRS?
1035. It's Section 1035 of the IRS code. It's a like kind for like kind exchange, where you can exchange an insurance, cash value in an insurance policy for another insurance policy.
Like kind for lifetime?
Like kind for like kind. In other words, you can change a whole life from one company to a whole life with another company, and any cash value that's built up is non-taxable. It also allows you to do transfers of annuity to annuity. As long as you're taking one product and moving it to the exact same type of product, any cash value built in it is non-taxed. Okay, it's just like you went to the swap meet and you traded your pocket knife for somebody else's fishing knife.
What's the benefit?
What's the benefit?
Uh-huh.
Okay, well, here's the benefit. Let's say you have a $100,000 policy, right?
Okay,
You have $75,000 worth of cash value in it. Okay?
okay,
Now, let's say we go to ABC Company. We transfer that $75,000 cash over here. Let's say we're paying $100 a month here. ABC may turn around and say, tell you what, for that $75,000 cash, I'll give you $125,000 for coverage and no more payments.
You said like kind for like kind, so it can
It's a
increase
whole
in
life
value.
to, it's a whole
Oh,
life
like
to a whole
life.
life.
Okay. All right.
so
Can I-
you're, oh,
Can I
sorry.
offer one thing on
So-
explanation too?
Yeah, hold on. So what I just did is I increased the face value of the policy, got rid of the payment. You can do that all the time.
I love that.
Or you can increase the value of the policy and keep the same monthly payment. Or the third option, which I've done before, is move it. We may only get $95,000 worth of death benefit, so you lose $5,000 in face value, but no more payments.
Okay,
And the customer's like, crap, I get rid of that $100 payment? Yeah, I don't care about that extra $5,000 of insurance. That's fine.
Since life insurance is based on the number of people that die per thousand, the determination is every 10 years when the census data is done. So you have a 1980, 90, 2000 census. So the actuary, if you come across a policy that has 1980 CSF, standard mortality rate, more people were dying per thousand 1980, people are living longer, so the actual internal cost of the insurance continues to go down as people live longer. So if you run across a policy that's been enforced for 20, 30 years, the mortality charges internally are enough to at least have the conversation about moving the policy.
Yep. In a worst case scenario, if you go through all this and you can't make the client's life better, what do? You say, Brent, sorry, we can't find something better, so you need to stick with the policy that you have.
Your life is as good as it's getting.
What did I just do? I just built more trust with the client.
Yeah.
Because now the client knows that, hey, I'm not just out trying to sell him something.
Right.
I'm trying to help him.
Hey, Clifton, I never got an answer from you to the 1035 exchange for GUL.
Most of the time on a 1035 exchange, you're doing the cash value to purchase a whole life with a single payment.
But can you do it for GUL?
Don't know. We would have to ask the specific company that you wanted to move it to.
Because if you're doing that exchange and you're not gonna have any more payments, wouldn't it be wiser just to get more coverage with GUL than whole life?
Probably not,
Why not?
because probably what you're gonna be better off doing, if the customer is okay with $100 a month payment, typically I would look to move that $75,000 in cash to another company to get a paid up permanent policy that they never pay anything else for again, and then find out what $100 a month would buy them on another GUL. Transfer the existing cash over and purchase another policy with the $100 a month payment.
Basically starting over.
Basically starting over, but because the mortality rates have changed over the years, you're probably gonna be able to buy more per, for that $100, you'll probably buy more insurance.
Well, it depends on.
Unless they've had it for 50 years, and then you're not. But with a GUL, you're not trying to build any cash value, so you're gonna get lower rates than you would with a whole life. And what I have done in the past, also with one client, is what do you think that $100 a month would buy in term insurance? Because at the age of the clients that you're dealing with, how much life insurance do they really need? Do they need $500,000 worth of life insurance? Probably not. Well, it depends on how healthy they are. I've got a 65-year-old that I wrote a $100,000 term policy with. Because it's a 20-year term. He wants to protect his wife against the mortgage of the house. He owes a little over $100,000 on the house. He just wants to make sure if he crooks, the house is pretty much paid off.
Yeah.
And he knows that in 20 years, he'll have it pay, actually, he'll probably pay it off before that, because he's probably gonna retire in the next 10 years, and the house will be paid off in that 10 years, and what's he gonna do with that term policy? He's just gonna quit paying on it and terminate it. He just wants it just to make sure that she doesn't get stuck with $100,000 worth of a house note that she wouldn't be able to afford. Actually, she would be, because we've got investments, but he doesn't want her to blow through the annuities that we've got set up just to pay the house off. He wants that to be still there, so that she can continue to live after he's gone. So it's all in a matter of, you have to look at every individual prospect. Before you really know what you're doing on the advanced life insurance stuff, leave that to me, leave that to Travis, leave that to David, leave that to Carol, until you get real familiar with it. Because there's gonna be different ways to treat every situation. And we're gonna look at what's best for the client. Okay? So, now, what have I attempted to sell so far?
Long-term care.
Well, it started off with a med sup, right? Very first thing I did was attempt to sell a med sup. Then I set up a long-term care. then I looked at annuities, then I looked at life insurance. I've already made 4 soft closes. And I actually have, at this point, pushed that checklist off to the side, reached in my bag and grabbed a Gerber life insurance policy and wrote a $15,000 life insurance policy right then and there. And then went back to finish the checklist. And then sold the Mets up on the end. Don't be afraid to stop this in the middle. When somebody gives you that, oh really? I can still get a life insurance policy at my age? Even though I'm missing one arm, one leg, and I had a liver transplant last week? Sure, we can do a Gerber. And a $10,000 policy is gonna cost you, and they say, wow, that's not bad at all, I can do that. Great, all I need to see is your driver's license and a voided check, and pull out the application and start writing. Because when you get that buying signal, it's time to write an application, right? Don't be afraid to stop what you're doing to write that app. Okay? Now that we finished the life, now we're going to go into Part B. And I'm gonna tell Brent, Part B covers doctors. Sometimes I write medical, just depends on what I start writing when I, basically it's the same thing. As we discussed earlier, Part A covers the hospital, that's the building. Part B covers all the people, right? That's as simple as I can make it for you. And most customers can, now they, sometimes I sit with a customer and they go, wow, that's simple. I never could understand that, now I do. That's all it is. Building people. Pretty easy to figure out, right? Now, for the people, Part B, you're gonna have to pay a premium. It's $134 per month or more, depending on your income level. And usually I don't go into any, unless I already know they're living in a $500,000, house. I might go into, finding out what their income level is, and there's a chart that you can help them determine out what their Part B premium is. Most people won't ask because they don't care. At that point, they're more concerned about everything else because you've already scared the crap out of them here, right? All they want to know is, okay, how are you going to fix that? Now, out of that, Medicare is going to require you to pay a $183 deductible for the year. That's the same as it was last year. There was no change in the deductible or the premium. That was the only thing that didn't change. Okay? After you pay that first $183, Medicare goes to an 80-20 plan, where Medicare pays 80% of
Approved.
Medicare approved amounts. You pay 20%. What do I mean by approved amounts?
Fee schedule.
There's a schedule for every procedure that's done. There's a code.
Medicare diagnostic rating grid, approved charges, assignment, all that.
Well, assignment just means whether the doctor accepts what Medicare says is the allowed amount or not. That's different than approved. Approved means, let's say you go to the doctor says, okay, for that kidney operation, I charge $15,000. Well, the coding, Medicare says it's only worth $10,000. So we're gonna approve a $10,000 charge. Medicare's gonna pay 80% of that 10 grand, which is $8,000. You're gonna pay 20%, which is $2,000. Now, if the doctor does not take Medicare on assignment, there's a clause in there that says the doctor can charge excess charges. What that means is he can charge you
It's not
that.
very
And the
vague.
eraser's way over there. Everybody knows that's 15%, right? My penmanship gets kind of sloppy when I get way down there at the bottom. 15% above the Medicare approved amounts. So in that particular situation, doctor wants 15 grand, Medicare only approves 10, he can charge 15% above the $10,000, so he can actually charge you 1,500 more. He doesn't get to charge the 15,000, but he can charge you 15% above.
So the 183 is the deductible that.
That's the
pays,
deductible.
And then you're responsible for 20% plus 15% over if that's what he has.
Yep. And the worst problem for you, Brent, and I always stress this 20% and that 15%, I'm sure you've worked at companies before where you've had work insurance, employer insurance, or you've had your own insurance. They always tell you that you have a deductible and then you also have a maximum out of pocket. Do you know what the maximum out of pocket is under Medicare for this 20% and that 15%?
Isn't it that, 1,340?
Nope.
No max. Sky's the limit.
And usually, if you ever see me do a seminar, I'll ask people, I said, what do you think the maximum out of pocket is under Medicare? And you'll get 3,000, 5,000, 10,000. I keep going. There is no limit, Brent. That means if the doctors say that you need $100,000 worth of surgeries this year, you're responsible for 200,000. And they want you to write them a check now before they admit you. Unless, of course, it's an emergency surgery and then they're gonna do the surgery and then they're gonna hound you forever for the money. But if it's like an elective surgery, something that could wait, they ain't gonna do it until you pay them. And they could charge you another $150,000 on top of that. Now, you remember earlier we talked about that $1,340? If that took care of all this other stuff, that would be okay. Well, how about if we got a program that they'll pay the $1,340, they'll pay the $335, they'll pay that $670, you pay zero. And you remember how here we said that you only use those 60 lifetime reserve days, and once they're gone, they're over with, and you pay the rest of the bill forever. With this plan, they'll also pick up an additional 365 days at hospital bill.
Wow.
That's an extra whole year in the hospital that you don't pay a penny. Now, you think that's not impressive? That's why I stress that. Because a lot of old people have seen someone that's been in the hospital for months because of serious complications from one surgery or, car accident or who knows what else. Okay. Now, of course, Medicare's not gonna pay, or the program's not gonna pay anything here because Medicare's paying the bill. Here, they're gonna pay that $167.50. You're gonna pay nothing. You like all these zeros, Brent?
Yes.
So do I. Unfortunately, they just stopped. Because if you go into long-term care, you're gonna have to pay the whole bill. But remember, we're gonna talk about that next week when Carol comes back with me, right?
Right.
So I can show you how we can take care of this as well. Now, the plan I recommend, you would pay the $183 deductible for the year. And then the insurance company is gonna pay your 20% and the 15%. And you're not gonna pay that. And that's gonna cost you $125 a month. Now, Brent, what I need is
Where do I sign?
I need your identification, I need a copy of your voided check. And I reach into my bag and grab the application. And most of the time, what does Brent do? He gets up and says, hang on, I gotta go get my checkbook. Or I've actually, my guy I was talking about earlier that did the $100,000. He was like, well, can I just pay the whole year up front? Yeah. He went and got a check and wrote a damn check for the whole year. I've had that happen twice. And I've got other customers that pay quarterly, they pay 3 months at a time. And they wrote me a live check for 3 months worth of premium. It's nothing like getting a check from somebody for $400 and another one for another $400, husband and wife, because they were in their 80s. Send it in, they're approved, boom, they're happy, I'm happy. Because guess
So
what?
much back.
Guess what? The higher the premium, the more the commission, because Medicare supplements are on a percentage, right? 12, 13, 14% commission on the first year. Only bad thing is if you accept a quarterly payment, what happens to your commission? You get paid quarterly.
Ah,
You don't get the whole year in advance. But that's okay, because guess what happens 3 months later? You get another quarterly check.
okay.
So that's kind of nice. And if they pay the whole year in advance, you get the whole year in advance. So that's kind of nice. Now, you see why, to me, it's easier to sell meds up, especially when someone's just turning 65. Now, for those people that have been on Medicare for a while, and they've been on an Advantage plan, it's still easy for me to get them to switch because,
Can I offer one thing real quick while you got this up here? And it's not that I'm smart, but Rosie and I just were at this class all week. Those numbers, an A, you know, instead of trying to memorize them all, if you take 1340, if you just remember that number, half 1340 is 760, half of 670 is 335, and half of 335 is the 167.
Ah,
yeah, and that happens every year.
Yeah.
But it's kind of hard to
Gave
divide
that
these
clue at
numbers in
the
your
end after I
head.
had to try to memorize it.
Like I said, what I do is the easiest thing is you can take one of these checklists, you can write the numbers on it, fold it, and stick it wherever your notebook is and have it right there in front of you until you get familiar. And when you do this enough times, you know, I had last year's numbers memorized probably in February. By the time March rolled around, I didn't need my cheat sheet anymore, but it was still there. I never bothered taking it out of there. It was still there. And the reason it was there is because in case I ever had a brain fart and lost it in the middle of my going through the checklist, there it was right in front of me. But it was easy, okay? And when somebody starts talking about their Medicare Advantage plans, yeah, they're great. You pay $0 for them until you need them. Then what happens? They're gonna cost you $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a year to use them. What if you get cancer and you wanna go to MD Anderson? You're not going to MD Anderson on that Medicare Advantage plan unless you wanna pay the whole bill out of your pocket. And guess how much it's gonna cost you to go to MD Anderson? A small fortune.
You're gonna die.
Or a large fortune.
Hmm?
Could be a large fortune, not just a small one.
Well, yeah, it could be a large fortune. More than likely, they're just gonna die because they're not gonna be able to afford it. Well, no, they might not die.
But our job is to keep that from happening, and so that's why
Alive. Our
we
job
step.
is to keep them alive.
That's it. That's our job. Our job is to